This is Steel Framing and Construction with SketchUp, Part 4. In the last 3 videos, we talked about foundation, grid, construction drawing grid, steel columns, slab, and we're up to steel beams. And so we're not quite to this point with the bar joists and all that. We'll get through the steel beams today. And I'm going to go ahead and start from the beginning, which is back where we were. In episode 3, we got to the columns and foundation, slab, and the top column connectors. We're missing one here. I'll just grab it. So I'm copying move control, and I'm going to go 16 feet. So that's the grid interval. So at times, a grid is going to be helpful, as you just saw. So follow me tool uses a path, and it can be a line or it can be a face. We're going to create the face version. I'm going to go from the furthest out corner at the upper side of that plate, or the plates, all the way around. And it doesn't matter what tag these are on, it's going to go away anyway. I wish I had a close command in SketchUp. It's one of my favorites in AutoCAD. That's our path. We've just created the path. Now that doesn't need to be any particular group. In fact, you don't want it in a group. What we need to do now is create this steel beam, 7 inches wide and 15 inches tall. So we'll type in 7, 15, and hit enter. So that's our profile, overall profile for the steel beam. Yeah, it's all right. It just looks kind of funky. What I want to do here is create the profile of the eye section, if you will. So we'll use a tape measure tool, or run over and find the center, and we'll go over a quarter inch each way from that. So we create a 1/2 inch thick web. I like to use guidelines because this way I can draw it out and make sure I know what I've got before I commit to anything solid, concrete. 5/8 for the top and bottom plates. And all we need to do here is we can take the rectangle tool or the line tool and just trace these guidelines. I'll use J to get rid of the guidelines, which is also my shortcut for edit, delete guides. So we're going to push pull this up about a foot, just for something, and get rid of this extra line here. So that's the profile of our beam on the perimeter. I'm going to make a copy of this, move control, 3.5, 8. So it's 3.5 by 8. I'm going to pull that up. 0.375. So that's part of it. This is going to be an angle when I'm done. I'm going to take this and this, 2 lines, and do an offset, which is F. 0.375 for 3/8. Went the wrong way. Try again. 0.375. All right. This part I'm going to get rid of. There's our angle. I need this to be 3.5 as well. Now here I can use move as like a push-pull. Just grab that face and then use move. Make sure you stay on axis when you do that. I think this was 3/8. I want this to be 8. So I need this to be on the blue axis. 7 5/8. 7.625. Okay, so that's our clip angle. Now this needs to have some bolts as far as connectors are concerned, so I'm going to draw a center line, guideline with the tape measure tool. I'm going to go up 1.5 inches on each side. Go in the middle, 1.5 inches. So all of these are going to be used. I'm building a kit of parts is what's going on. So if you ordered steel, it would come in groups, and that's what I'm doing. This is pieces that you would get made and delivered to the job site for the steel erector. We need bolts. So what we'll do is draw some circles. Circle, and we'll go 0.5, no, 0.4, and I don't know, it's just an arbitrary number. Once you get a bolt size, you'll know better, but this is really the head of the bolt, so kind of doesn't matter. So that's the size. I put in 0.4. If I type 6S here at this point, I'm going to get a 6-sided or a hexagonal shape. I'm going to pull this out 1/2 inch. You can see that the edges are not there because this was drawn with a circle. I think with a polygon it comes out the same, so I have to draw the edges if I want them. They're not critical, but if you like it to look nice, then this is what you would do. Okay, so that's a bolt head. That looks a little fat, so I'm going to push that back in just a tad. That's 1/4. I'll go 0.125. It's 1/8 slicer. I'll take this and make this a component because I'm going to have many of these. We're going to call that bolt. When you make a component, make sure it's being replaced here. Your object is being replaced in the drawing. Because otherwise it just goes to a component library and you don't know where it went. So make sure this is checked. Seems to be the default now. Used to not be. So less problematic, but make sure you check it. So hit create and you've got a component. And I'm going to copy this, move, control, down to the center line, and I'm going to type 2x for, I want 2 of those. So you can see what happened is it drew the same spacing. I want to take all 3 of these and I'm going to make that a group because I'd like to be able to use those 3 bolts together. I need some on the other side, but first I want to move them on the opposite side as well, but more than just the opposite side. I need to move them a distance away. Control. Okay. Now these are components. These are components. So if I change this one, all of these are going to change. So I'll show you what I mean. Okay. So they all get longer. They all get shorter, whatever you do to it. Now we need these bolts also on the other side over here. So we're going to copy those. Staying on axes makes life a lot easier because I don't have to worry about the vertical. Q for rotate, which always gets me. 90 degrees. And I'll use the tape measure tool and double click on that edge and I'll see right here, that's where that guideline penetrates that surface, so that's where this corner needs to go. So you can be accurate like that. You don't have to guess. You know exactly where to go. Okay, so that's one of these clip angles. Now every connection usually has two, one on either side. Some will have four, one on each side of a two beam or four beam connection. In any event, this is essentially what they look like, and what we're really trying to do is represent the connection, not necessarily draw the exact connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that a group. You know what, actually I'm going to include these other nuts. No, I don't want to do that. You have to kind of think these things through when you're doing them, make sure what you want where. I'm going to make that a group. Right click, make group. Now I can, most cases I'm going to have the reverse of this, so I can get the mirrored version by using the scale tool. But first I got to make a copy. Stay on axes again. It makes life a whole lot easier. Scale tool, middle grip, just pull it through itself on axes. Type in -1. That's for the mirrored version of it. Now this needs to be the space between the beams, or the, you know, of the web of the beam, and that's 1/2 inch. So we'll take a guideline and copy it over 0.5. And then move this guy here over to there, hopefully. Yep, okay. Doubled up on the nuts, I guess, somehow. Let's get rid of that one. All right, so that's a typical clip angle. Control, move control, just move it wherever. Then we'll use scale. You can see I'm using the center grip, so it's symmetrical push-pull essentially. Scale, -1, so a mirrored version. So this should be group. This is group. Okay, I want to explode this. I had them in groups and not necessarily components. So that's what I'm talking about. You have to figure it out sometimes. Make sure you get the arrangement right. What I was trying to do is get that as a component and that as an opposite, equal and opposite component. You can see it says solid component 2 in model. Solid component is one that it has no leaks in it. In other words, there are no missing sides or edges. 0.5 here. We'll copy this one over. Not copy, move it. Missed those nuts in this whole thing. Move. ½ inch. That to be ½ inch. Okay. Now it'll seem like I'm spending a lot of time on this, and I am, but it'll become very valuable eventually as we move on down the line. Now here I may have a steel beam running the opposite direction, and we'll get into that as we get going on this, but there'll be something behind this. So for right now, I'm going to leave it like it is. That's a solid component. I'm going to get inside of it so that I can color it and color all of them at the same time, all the surfaces at the same time. Materials. That's what I need is materials. Here we are down here. So what color do I want these to be? Let's make them baby blue. use that. So it's a component, so you paint the whole thing at once, but what's cool about that is that these are equal and opposite components. So they both get painted as long as you're inside the component. From the outside, that won't happen. Here, we got components. This should, again, I get it inside, and I'll put these as a pale green. Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and add this to the other side. Let's get both. I use Control to pick more. Some people use Shift. I did it for years and then decided that I wanted to use Control to be a little more precise. Let's just set that there at some point. So we get 5/8 here for a web potentially on another beam. So I'm going to put, all right, let's do it this way. So I put it there and I'm going to back it off 5/8. So that leaves the space that I want between to get the flange or the web of another steel beam in there. This is, I'm trying to think ahead, trying to make my life as easy as possible. So that backside was open, so I just drew a line across it to fill it up. And if you notice that they were all open, so I just have to color this one completely. They should all be colored, yes. So you're going to see those are floating in space, and that's what I want. I want them to be away from that plate. This should be enough to penetrate through the perimeter beam. If it's not, we'll make a little adjustment. But I think that's right. So I get rid of the guidelines. Let's see which beam's which. This is the perimeter beam. I'm going to make that one kind of a light gray. And this is the center beam. I'm triple clicking on it to pick the whole thing. And I'll make that one like maybe yellow or something. I don't know, I'm just picking colors. I like to use lighter colors, more pastels. Oops, that in the wrong place. I'll back up. Control Z, Control Z. Okay. Goldenrod. That sounds like a good color. Okay, so that's my center beam, my perimeter beam, and my clip angles. Those are essentially the parts we're going to need to frame the second floor or the roof, whatever it is you're looking at here. This surface could be reused later, so I'm going to save it. I'm going to right click and make a group. And I'll have to, well, I'm going to undo that. I need to do that afterwards. So I'm going to take the bigger beam and run it around the perimeter. So pick the whole thing. I don't want to do that yet. I want to rotate it. Q for cute. 90 degrees up. Rotate it sideways. I think that's right. Move it up. As long as I don't deselect it, I can keep moving it as I need. So this beam is going to go on the perimeter. I'm going to make that a group. Right click, make group, just so it doesn't stick to everything. I'm going to move it up on top here temporarily in some spot. Okay, let's see, this plate is 4 inches, I believe. I want to try to get this beam centered on that column. So I'm going to center it on 4 inches with the guideline. And move this guy up onto here. Make sure I got the center point. So that's where my perimeter beam will set. I'll use a follow me to pull that around eventually. This is the center beams. I mean, this was the perimeter beam here. This is the center beam. Make a copy of this, I guess. I want to make a copy just in case I need it again. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Move control. Never makes sense to not keep things. So you're building a library, essentially. This one needs to rotate. I'll make a group out of that. Rotate Q, my favorite command. Q. We'll rotate that up 90 degrees, and then we'll rotate it the other direction as well. Now I'll leave it because I need one that way too. Let's make a copy of this. Building my kit apart still, I guess. Rotate this one the other direction because I need steel running both ways. Okay. So the idea here is to get all the parts ready that you can just put them in place. I'll start with the perimeter. This is right now a group. And we can't make a follow me with something in a group and something outside the group. So I have a couple choices. I could take this plane, I'll double click to get the whole perimeter. So I've gotten the edges and the face. So I picked the whole plane on purpose, and Control X to cut it. And I'm going to double click on the perimeter beam. If you do edit, paste in place, what that does is it puts these two things in the same group. Now I can leave that in a group and still have the ability to do a follow me without any issue. So you can see they're both in the same group. Now I have to follow me this beam around using this surface. They're both in the same group. That's the only way this works. You have to have them both in the same group. So I'm going to pick that surface as my path. Pick the follow me tool. For me, it's a W shortcut. Then click on that face. And there we have it. Now it's corrected. So now it's sitting on top of these plates on the columns. The only thing I don't like about this is that they're inverted. So it should be okay. I'll triple click. Because all this stuff is in a group or a component or whatever down below, we can grab all this at once and we won't pick any of that. I'll right click, pick reverse faces. So we can do it as one giant chunk. So there's our main steel. I'm going to take this face here. I think I may have a group or a tag for ceiling. Yeah, I do. So I'm going to put that on ceiling. And it'll turn off for now. That's what I want. I want it to get out of my way. That's a nice part about tags is if you want to try to work on something you can't see, you can turn off certain parts of the drawing that are in your way. This big one, I guess what I'll do is I'll move both of these out of the way a little bit. I don't want to go too far. Okay, so now I need to put the ones in the middle. So these are going to be running this way. So I'm going to check, see what the distance is from one end to the other. 3111. So we'll make it 3110, picking up that other edge. All right, I'm going to assume it's 12. Draw a line to fill this in. I want to get rid of that line, make sure that's all one face. That's part of my problem previously. Okay. This, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this one's the 12-inch, tell you the truth. Yep. Again, double click, get inside, draw a line to fill it in, click outside of it, so we're there on the outside of that group. Again, I'm going to make a copy. So I have two. One's going to be the one I use, and one's going to be the one to store. Sure, there we go. So we got to put this up on this beam here. Beam steel is all erected by a top of steel matching. So that's what I'm doing. The beams are different sizes, but you want the tops to match because that's where everything bears. So make sure when you're placing steel, at the top of steel, if you ever notice on a drawing, it'll say TOS, and that means top of steel. So I'm taking the center line of that column down below, and I'm going to take the center line of this beam and line them up. I think I got it. There we go. I'm going to pull this over 0.5. I want a half-inch space in there. Two inches, actually. I don't know how I got that. 1.5. We'll move it over. No. How big is this space? 0.5. 5. Okay. I think I moved to 0.5. So we got it set at 0.5, well, up against the flange of the perimeter beam. We'll move this out 0.5. I don't know what was happening before, but well, maybe it'll work. What I need to do is cope this beam. As you can see, there's a space. So this beam has to be cut out from the top down. This part is going to be short anyway. It's short of the bottom of the perimeter beam anyway. So what I need to do is be able to get this web over to that web. What I would do is check and see that there's 3¼ inches of that flange sticking out. So what we need to do is chop out basically 3¼ less a half, so 2¾ So get inside this and take a guideline, go 2.75. And we're going to take a line and draw it up through here, and up through here. So I'm just going to pull this off, hopefully. Looks like it. So that's a cope. And what that means is I chopped a chunk of this out of here. Some steel fabricators will actually take and put arc cuts on these things so that you don't have I don't know why they do it. Tell you the truth, I guess they must think it looks good. But the idea here is that the top flange can go over to that flange, and this one can actually go in further. So if we move this back, think it was 2 3/4, 2.75. I don't know if that's right or not. Looks like it. Let's check it. Half inch. Yep, perfect. So I guess really I kind of messed this up. I should bring this flange in. I mean the web in. So I'll double click here. Once I get this right, I can use it over and over again. Pull to that edge. Okay. That's the edge down below of the flange. Okay, so that's it. We'll take this particular face and I'm going to pull this across, push pull, and I'll go 30 feet. So I typed in 30 feet and hit enter. And intentionally I did that so I come close but not quite. So here again I need a cope. So I'll go ahead and put it on here. Eventually I can use this beam again. 2.75 is what it should be. 2.75, enter. There we go. So if you ever make a mistake typing things in and you don't do anything else first, you can type it over. Just type it over. That's all you gotta do is just type it again. You can even do it by, if you need to reverse the numbers, you can do that too. So here I'm gonna do this a little differently. I'm gonna cut this face in pieces and I push. I'm gonna push that back to the 2 3/4 line. Bucket, Alt, I can sample, paint that. So there's my cope. It should work fine. The only thing I have to do here now is pull it over so that I'm going to use window and I'm going to use the move tool. I'm going to pull that all over. Move, M. Stay on axes here. Come back a ½ inch. Okay, there we go. It's basically stretch when you do that. So now, as I recall, these beams, or these plates are a little short. So I'm going to just take the whole thing and let's see, these need to go up as well. These were shorter because of the need to go down into the floor. I think 1 inch is right. Yeah, looks like it. So we'll push pull this. Have to double click probably to get in here. Push pull this up to that plate. These are the little adjustments have to be made as you go along. I'm not going to make them all, but after a while, if you're a detailer or something of that nature, you'll know what to look out for. I'm doing the best I can with basically no information. That was too low, so I brought it up. So now you should have the bolts and nuts on top and bottom, which we do. Huh, the beam didn't quite get up, or the column didn't quite get up there. There we go. Sometimes it's hard when you're trying to get inside a group to push pull things. Things kind of semi-disappear on you. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we have a plate, got the column, a plate, all the bolts, and we have a beam running across. So this beam really needs to go in again, down one, control, 16 feet. So that works good. And then we have a beam that's going to run the other way, which is the same as these center beams. I don't think I can actually raise this other column, which is fine. I mean, it's not good, but I don't feel like doing it right now. So there. Anyway, I'll rotate this one. So these are all coped, right? This one's also coped, which we're going to need on each end. So we'll rotate this one. No, we'll copy it first. So that's move, control. We'll copy it down here. Some arbitrary distance. Rotate that 90 degrees. And you noticed I stayed on axes because then everything you see stays on plane. And now I'm going to take this and move it over till it gets over to this particular location. Now it's not right yet on this left to right, so I'll move it over somewhat. I tend to like to approximate things and then get in and get it more detailed as we go along. This is not really true to what it's going to be. There will be joints here. These beams would be discontinuous and there'd be angles in there. So I'll just tell you that, and we'll do some angle connections here as we move along. This part here, I guess it's going to be best to move this over a little bit first. 24 inches, just arbitrary number. Double click, get into that. Select that whole thing with a window so I can move it. And I can move it from way back here if I want to. I can go on any edge as long as it's in the axes that I want it to be in. Now I'll just move this over so I get close. I'm going to check this, see if it's a half an inch. 3/8. So I think I'll just leave it. It's close enough. Close enough for my job. Okay, so I should have a coped beam on each end in the end. I'll check this distance. 21 and 7/8, so we'll go 21 and 4/8, 5/8, 21 and 3/8. Move. No control this time. 21.375. Let's see if that's right. Looks like it. Okay. So that's the center beams. So you can see once you get one or two, you pretty much have everything. So the profiles I drew initially make up all these beams. The last one is the clip angle, which will take in position. I'm going to make a group out of all this so I make sure I get all the parts is what I'm doing here. Okay, make a group. And move this up to a particular, not a particular, just a connection, intersection. So that angle goes into that corner and it's going to lap on that flange or web, I guess is the right word. Just drop it on over there. So that's on that face. Take this and put it on this face. Okay. Now let's see, these are 12-inch beams, I think. Let's see what the distance is here. 10 3/4, so go 5 3/8 to the center. 5.375. I'll move this clip angle from the center of that down to the center line of the beam. Now, should have bolts. Yeah, nice. This is the purpose of having bolts sticking out further than you want them normally. So that actually would be a connection for all of this. If you need stronger connections, sometimes they'll put clip angles on both sides. Let's see, right now I have clip angles on both sides of that, and then I have bolts coming out both sides of this. So pretty quick. Point being, if you do it right from the beginning, you set yourself up for success very easily. This clip angle can be placed anywhere you like. I mean, we can copy it, move, control, 16 feet hopefully is where it goes, and then we can go 2x. Too late. So it sits on there perfectly. Move. It's going to be a little short because the way this beam is set over, but that's the whole point of all this. Working it all out, all the parts and pieces. I'm not an engineer, but as an architect, I like to make sure things are in the right places. So you can see here, this is the way this bolt pattern would be for those clip angles. I think this is kind of nice to be able to show this to somebody and say, well, three-dimensionally, this is what it looks like. And it's good for you to understand how it works. I'll just erase that guideline. J for me to erase guidelines, so you can do edit, delete guides as well. Or you can do, view guides. You can turn them off here. So it's on right now. If I turn it off, they go away. View guides. So the difference between them is this one kind of just stores them and turns off. The edit one makes them go away completely. You can always Control Z, get them back, but can't go too far. I tend to use guidelines a lot, so I put a J as a shortcut so I can eliminate them quickly. So bottom line is you'll have connections like this in your drawing. And you remember we set that all up in the plate, in the clip angle initially. So putting them in, it's a no-brainer, except for maybe rotating them to the proper orientation. And you'll get the bolts showing properly. So you can see it works perfectly. I think that's as far as I'm going to go today. Wanted to try to get to bar joist, but this has gotten a little longer than I hoped. So we'll just stop at this point. Look at the overall project. And there we go. So we're going to leave it at this for right now, but you can see all the beam connectors and all of that here. Okay, so let's stop for now. We'll get back to looks like episode 5. And we should be able to finish bar joists and metal decking and slab. Those aren't nearly as detailed as what we just did. But what we just did is probably one of the more important parts of the whole building. So when you look at it as a whole, that's what you get. So that's the project as we have it to this point. And like I said, we'll start episode 5 shortly. Sorry it took so long, but I hope that detail helps you. A lot of the things we went over today can be used in other cases, other kinds of applications. So thanks for coming by. Hope I helped out, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.